So let's go. This class is presented in voice and text, and there are some visual aids that I'll put up on the texture board. You can left click on the Firestorm class notes and first aid kit box near me to get the class notes for all of our classes, as well as a few other goodies. These class notes do get updated semi-regularly. You can always tell by the cover text the latest update. It was May 11th, and the latest version of these notes are always available in our main classroom. There's a landmark in the class notes. And to adjust voice volumes, you can go to the COM menu, click on Nearby Voice to open the Nearby Voice panel, and from there you can adjust individual volumes by slider. So, welcome to our Firestorm Preferences Set 3 class, based on our 4.6.5 release. We're going to go over some of our preferences. In particular, we're going to cover the Move and View Advanced and Firestorm tabs, along with the associated subtabs. If you have any questions about the topic that we're on, please put them in local chat. Text is best during the class. Voice is more than welcome afterwards. And one of us will answer as soon as we can. If you've got off-topic questions, please wait until after the class. We hold an open question and answer session after our classes, where you can ask just about anything you like. So Control-P or Avatar menu, clicking on your preferences will open your preferences. There's also a toolbar button available for your preferences if you're so inclined. And we're going to start on the Move and View tab, in particular the View subtab. View angle, this affects your camera's field of view, how many degrees you can actually see. Distance changes the distance that your camera follows your avatar. Transition time, this affects the speed at which your camera will reset when returning to your avatar after camming out. So if you make it really fast, it just pops right back. Make it really slow and it just sort of pans its way across back to you. Smoothing, smooths camera position over time. Disable camera constraints, this allows your camera to move further away from your avatar. The same as in the advanced menu where it's disable camera constraints as well. Don't use the mouse wheel to control zoom level of the camera. If you check that, it'll disable zooming using your mouse wheel. Then we have automatically pose avatar during, and you can select one or more or none. It's your choice. Build or edit. When this is selected, the camera automatically moves to center on the object that you're editing. And then there's appearance, which is on by default. This automatically zooms the camera in on your avatar when you enter appearance mode. It also automatically focuses as you select different body parts and clothing tabs. You can deselect this to leave the camera where it is, as well as not assume the position while you're in appearance. You all know what I mean. Legs spread, arms outstretched, looking like you're waiting for the cops to frisk you or something silly like that. Then there's add additional lighting. You can check this for the extra lighting effect. When you're in appearance, it does require the automatically pose at appearance option enabled. Enable mouse look functionality. You can check this to be able to get into mouse look. If it's disabled, you will not be able to get into mouse look. Some people hate mouse look and wind up in it accidentally. So, hi Kit. Just so you know, this is being recorded for our YouTube channel. Show avatar in mouse look will allow you to see yourself when you are in mouse look. You won't see your entire avatar, but looking down, for example, you'd see your feet or any other parts of your avatar that got in the way. Show user interface in mouse look. This allows you to see the user interface while you're in mouse look. Enable context menus in mouse look. With this enabled, you'll be able to open the pie or context menu by holding down the Alt key and right-clicking on objects. Then there's Show Mouse Look instructions. This will show the press escape to exit mouse look message when you enter mouse look. And show mouse look crosshairs. This will enable the crosshairs when you're in mouse look. Enable combat features. Enables IFF, that's identification of friend or foe. This is cool for combat. And there's an option, draw target markers. And this draws arrows pointing to the friend or foe avatars. It shows where the avatar truly is, not where an animation might make them appear to be. And range. This is the maximum range for the above option. Next is the mouse look mouse sensitivity slider. This affects how far your avatar turns in mouse look. If you move this slider to the right, it will cause your avatar to turn further when you move the mouse with the same amount of mouse movement. And invert. This makes your mouse work backwards in terms of up and down movement. Remember that one the next time somebody says, I'm always walking backwards, or forwards when I mean to go backwards. That's what's happened. Any questions on this tab, folks? There is. However, it's not that simple. There's a link. If you were to search Second Life, a matter of perspective, you'll find that there's a blog post about it, and there's a forum post about it as well. Yep, a matter of perspective. Best article I've seen about how to customize your camera position. Second Life. You're quite welcome. So let's move on. Yeah, ask me after the class, kid. I'll throw you a link. I have to find it. So we're going to move on to the movement sub-tab. Arrow keys always move me. That's just what it says. Let the arrow keys move you all the time. Use a ZERTY keyboard layout. This uses a keyboard layout suitable for ZERTY keyboards. It does require a restart to turn it on or off. The ZERTY keyboards are most commonly used in France and Belgium. Tap, tap, hold to run allows you to double tap and hold the up arrow key to run. Fly or land on holding up or down allows holding the up or down button to fly or land. Enable crouch toggle mode. I like this one. I've got a crawling on all fours animation that I use. When you enable this, your avatar will remain in a crouched position while walking without having to use the page down key. Hey Flossie, just so you know, we're recording, hon. Play sound effect when teleporting. This allows you to hear the teleport sound effect. Or, if you're like me and you've heard one too many whoosh when you teleport, you can turn it off. Always fly after teleporting will put your avatar in fly mode on a teleport. This can be handy. Ever go to some place that's got a landing point and it's really busy and you wind up stacked 7 or 8 avatars high doing the funky chicken flail in midair? Well, no, I'm talking more about when you get stuck doing that funky chicken flail. You know, your arms are flailing in air because you're stuck there, and yeah. Well, if you use this, you just get shunted off to the side automatically. One less thing to do, kid. I'm a lazy man, remember? Then there's hold the jump or crouch key to start or stop flying. Allows holding the jump or crouch key to fly or land. And then we've got some goodies. This one, if move lock, built into the LSL bridge. Well, yeah, but you just get shunted off to the side and then you could just land. Rather than move and then have to fall down. 6 one, half did the other. Anyhow, if move lock built into the LSL bridge is active, we have always relock position after a region change. So if you enabled the move lock function, you can find that in the top menu, avatar menu, movement submenu, move lock, or by hitting Control-Alt-P. This keeps the lock enabled when you teleport. That, along with this one, lock and unlock position after stopping or starting movement. When this is enabled, you can have the move lock enabled and you'll be able to move. It unlocks when you start moving, and when you stop, it locks again, thus keeping people from pushing you around very far. Remember, they can bump you, but they're not going to move you. Single click on land. In this drop-down, clicking a spot on the ground can either do nothing or cause you to walk to that spot. Single click autopilot. Personally, I leave that one off. I accidentally click on things all the time. Then we have the double click on land drop-down. And double clicking a spot on the ground or a prim can do nothing, cause you to walk to that spot, or teleport you to that position. That's the double click teleport. And joystick configuration. This button opens a window where you can change settings for other input devices. The defaults are supposedly for a 3D space navigator, but I've heard of people using joysticks, gamepads, all sorts of things for Second Life. So, any questions on anything on this tab? No, there is not. Linden Lab, there used to be, but Linden Lab required that we remove that ability from the viewer. Respecting people's rights and privacy. That'd be the one, Sam. So that's the link. Kit, that's the one I was talking about as well. That's the one I don't have to hunt for now. Although mine went to the blog, same thing. It's the same article. Next comes the Firestorm subtab. So we're still in Move and View, but we're on the Firestorm subtab. Top, we have some camera options. Clicking your avatar keeps camera position. When this is enabled, clicking your avatar will focus your camera at the point that you click on your avatar. Ever got on a pose stand? Well, you don't need a new pose. You don't need to res a pose stand anymore. We've got one built into the viewer. And been trying to edit a necklace or a ring or some other attachment and having a hard time focus. This actually works very well. You just click on your avatar and that's where your camera focus is. You can zoom in, rotate, and it's pretty cool. Reset camera position after a teleport within a region. This will reset the camera to behind your avatar after you teleport on a region, within a region. Reset camera position on avatar movement. This will reset your camera. If you've cammed out, all you have to do is turn left, right, move forward or back, or any movement at all of your avatar will reset your camera. Then we have disable minimum camera zoom distance. This allows your camera to zoom in as far as you want, allowing you to see inside of prims as well as avatars. You don't hit that artificial can't zoom in any further. And if you wanted to test this, focus on my head and zoom in, and you'll see something that I got for my avatar that most avatars don't have, specifically to show this feature. It's true, Trifina. Turn avatar towards camera on reset view. When resetting your camera after camming out, this will turn your avatar to face the direction that your camera is facing. Some people prefer that. That way they can see what direction they were actually looking. Some people don't. It's up to you. Allow the camera to move without constraints through prims. If this is enabled, it will not keep your camera view on the same side of a prim as your avatar. For example, if you put your back against a wall, you would be seeing the outside of the wall, the other side of the wall. If it was disabled, your point of view would bounce forward to be over your head, and you'd be able to see inside. Ever gone exploring some of these Second Life castles and been trying to walk up the circular staircase in the turrets, and your camera's outside where you can't see your avatar? This avoids that. The downside is if you're out in the open and somebody walks behind you, your camera will bounce forward as long as they're behind you or there's a prim behind you. It's a bit of a bouncy camera. Show the default camera controls mini floater always as opaque. When this is enabled, your camera controls floater will be opaque all the time. And then we have some mini-map options. Enable mini-map rotation. When this is enabled, the mini-map will rotate when your avatar turns. Think of it as holding a compass in your hand. It's the easiest way to picture that one, I think. And then there's a bunch of options for double-click on mini-map. This drop-down lets you choose what double-clicking on the mini-map does. It can do nothing. It can open the world map, or you can use it to teleport to that point. Pick scale. This controls the radius of the pick range on the minimap, that little circle that you see on the minimap. Then we have some world map options. Filter duplicate landmarks on the world map. Does anybody here teleport using the landmarks from the world map? Most people don't. Some people do. If you do, cool. So this one, if it's enabled, will not show any duplicate landmarks on the drop down in the world map. And if you don't, and you hate duplicate landmarks, you'll also love this feature because you can leave it off, go to the world map, go to the landmarks, and it will show every landmark in your inventory. Not just the ones in the landmark folder, but every single landmark in your inventory. So if you've been out to a shoe store and bought out their entire line of 26 different pairs of shoes, you'll have a landmark for each one usually in the box. This will show you where they all are. You can't delete them from there, but shoes or hair, I bounce between one and the other, Shasley. They're good examples in Second Life. Show additional region information on the world map. This adds the region's maturity rating as well as the number of people currently on it to the world map. It can take a minute or two for the world map to update, but this adds that information. Show grid coordinates on the world map. This will add the grid coordinates of the region to the world map. And then this. Notify if the simulator version changes while changing the region. This will display a notice if the simulator version changes during a teleport or when you cross from one region to another. So this lets you know if you go from a RC region to a main region and vice versa. Some people love it, some people hate it. This next one, show simulator channel in the status bar. This sorta, well it might, show the current simulator channel in the V1 Lite status bar. This doesn't quite do what it says. It doesn't show you if you're on a main region. It doesn't say anything. But if you're on one of the RC regions, it'll tell you you're on Blue Steel, the Tigra, Magnum, whatever. What's the value? The RC channels are where they test server code. So if you see strange things happening on a region, you can look up and say, oh, I'm on an RC region, go to a different region, hopefully a main region, try the same thing, see if the problem exists there, and then go back to the other one and test again, and if it still exists, then you could file a bug report with Linden Lab and help them improve the server code. That's why it's useful. Okay. Next comes turn avatar around when walking backwards. When you walk backwards, this makes it look like your avatar turns around and walks away. When you release the key for going backwards, your avatar turns and faces the original direction. And then this one. Builders love this. At least some builders do. Turn avatar towards a selected object. When this is disabled, you should not turn to face an object when you select it. My SL partner loves this one because she can maintain a hug and still be fussing around with the pictures behind her without ruining the hug. Any questions on this tab, folks? That's okay, I'm going to drink tea anyhow, Shasna. Yeah, it's been something people have been after for a long time, Kit. I'm glad we could add it. That's the way it should be. Quite honestly, we learn things. The teachers learn things in these classes. So we're going to move on to the Advanced tab. So Preferences, Advanced. This one's nice, short, and sweet. Which is good because the Firestorm tab's coming up and it's got a gazillion sub-tabs. Allow multiple viewers, and it says may reduce stability and performance. This allows you to run multiple instances of Firestorm. Now, having multiple accounts logged in will affect your performance. You're going to take a hit because it's more work for your computer to do. And stability depends on, some people can run 5, 6, no problem. Other people crash even if they run 2. My guess is it has to do with their hardware or some other software that they're running on their system. Resources, usually. Next is allow login to other grids. Not all grids will support Firestorm. This enables the grid manager on the login screen. If you use the Second Life beta grid, you definitely want this enabled. You'll also want it, it's on by default on the OpenSim builds. Then there's Show Advanced menu, and it says Use at Own Risk. This adds the Advanced menu to your top menu bar. And Show Developer menu, Use at Own Risk. This adds the Develop menu to the top menu bar. Both of those say use at your own risk. They say that because most of the things in there have been moved out other places. Well, most of the things that the average user would use have been moved to other places. And there really isn't a whole lot in there that the average user is going to use. However, there are some very cool things in there. However, again, there are things in there that will crash you or cause you problems. So if you really want to play around with it, come on out to our menus 2 class, folks. We go over the Advanced and Develop menu and we point out the ones that you want to stay away from. We do that by not talking about them too much. Yep, all the grids that are either officially, we don't offer support on other grids for Firestorm. Second Life keeps us busy enough. But by supported, in that case, it means that they work on the other grid. Some are by default, some you have to add. Then we have amount of time in milliseconds to yield every frame to other applications when Firestorm is not in the foreground. The default is 40. 1 second equals 1000 milliseconds, just for anybody that doesn't know. So this means that if you minimize the viewer, it frees up a few more resources on your computer for other applications to use, because it's runs slower, basically. And there's a reset all settings button. Clicking this will reset all of your global settings, which is most of your settings, to the defaults for your particular computer. Any questions on this tab? Shazli, are you starting to catch on that I really don't expect too many questions? It's basically just an excuse to get a mouthful of tea in me. This talking's thirsty business. Alright, so let's get into the heavy-duty stuff. Let's move to the Firestorm tab. In particular, the General sub-tab. Allow remote scripted viewer controls, also known as RLVA or Restrained Love API. This enables RLVA. It requires a restart to turn it on or off. Enable double-click teleports on the world map. This allows you to double-click on the world map to teleport. So, you like double-click teleports, folks? You can double-click on a surface to teleport there. You can double-click to teleport on the mini-map. And you can double-click to teleport on the world map. Disable teleport beacons. This hides those big red lines with the little arrows. You see when you teleport into some place and you're not at the landmark because you've created a landmark at some store because you just gotta have that particular hair. See, I'm picking on hair this time, Shazli. You saw a hair that you just absolutely had to have, but you were short on lindens at the time, and you've made a landmark, but the store's got a landing point, so it's just, that's the beacons we're talking about. Disable teleport screens. This disables the black teleport screen during all teleports. The handy thing about this, it will allow you to still type and read IMs while you're waiting to see if your teleport goes through or not. Disable login progress screen. This disables the black login progress screen, you know, where it says connecting to world, connecting to region, and all that stuff. Disable logout progress screen. Same thing with the logout progress. It just disables that. You just get a black screen. Disable automatic opening of your block list. Enable this option if you don't want your block, aka mute list, to open when you block a person or an object. Always res objects under the land group if possible. Many regions are set to only let objects be resed by group members. So when you res an object, the viewer will attempt to set the group of the object to that group if your avatar is in the same group that the land is set for. Then we have sort contact list by username even when display names are shown. This allows your contact list to be sorted by the username instead of the display names, even when display names are shown in or chosen in your preferences. Please, if you're not using both usernames and display names, just use it enabled or leave it disabled, please. It's more trouble than it's worth if you're not using both. Render blocked avatars as a particle cloud. This will render any avatars that you have muted as a lovely putrid green cloud, making them easy to identify. Hide empty system folders in inventory. This will hide any system folders you have that are empty. So for example, if you had no scripts in your inventory, you could hide your scripts folder. Show the received items folder in normal inventory. With this enabled, the received items folder will show in your normal inventory list of folders rather than as a panel under the folder list. One thing about your received items folder, folks, it's not intended to store things. So move things out of there. I know it's handy while you decide whether you want it or not, or sometimes, but I recommend creating a folder specifically for things that you move out of there. I have one that's called Deal With Me. Then we have allow separate search terms on each tab in your inventory. If this is enabled, you can enter different search words or phrases in the search bar of the inventory window. So the inventory, recent and worn tabs could all be searched independently with different search terms. With it disabled, it's the same term, covers all of them. Deactivate tracking beacon when reaching the targeted avatar. This is less than or equal to 3 meters. Normally, a tracking beacon, such as one set via the map, will vanish once you get within 3 meters of it. With this disabled, the beacon will remain visible until you click on that arrow. Create particle effects when scripts communicate. With this enabled, scripted objects will display swirling particle lights when the scripts communicate. Hi Ralphie, we're in Preferences, Firestorm tab, General sub-tab. Class notes are available from the box on the floor up here by me. This one I really like, open avatar profile directly when clicking on its name. So if this is enabled, when you click on someone's name in chat, it opens the profile immediately. With it disabled, you get the small summary window where you get a choice to open the profile or not. Then we have enabled progressive draw distance stepping. This works by dropping your draw distance when you teleport to someplace, and then gradually increasing it after you arrive. And the slider controls the time between the steps. So what it does is it drops your draw distance to 32 meters for X number of seconds, however many seconds it is in there, which allows things closer to you to render before the things further away. Enable LSL client bridge. This enables the Firestorm bridge. It is recommended. It adds some interesting functionality to the viewer. There's the wiki page for more on exactly what the bridge is and what it does. It does quite a few things actually. If you ever go to do a script count on a person or an object and it doesn't work, recreate your bridge. That should fix it. To the right of that, there's Enable Bridge Flight Assist. The bridge can offer flight assist functionality if this is enabled. Note that you should not wear any other scripted flight assist if you turn this on, as they will conflict. And it does require the bridge to be enabled. Funny story about this one got added, and literally as soon as this got added to the viewer, Linden Lab increased the flight limit up to 5,000 meters. So you really only need a flight assist now over 5,000 meters. Any questions on this tab? That's it. I'm going to have to make this material far more confusing if there's not going to be any questions. How am I supposed to drink tea if there's no questions? Alright, so let's move on to the protection sub-tab. Good plan, Boo. So we have block left click sitting on objects. Some objects are set so that a left click will result in sitting on them rather than touching. Enable this if you want to accidentally avoid sitting on such objects. This will, however, prevent all left click sitting. You'll need to explicitly right click and select sit from the menu. Allow scripts to show map UI. This uses the LL map destination feature in the Linden scripting languages. Certain teleport systems open the map when they're clicked for teleporting, enable this if you want to allow that. And then we come to the biggie. Revoke permissions. This removes an object's permission to animate or control your input. If this is not done, an object can retain permission to animate your avatar indefinitely. Now, just to be clear, that means forever. So the options are never, which is the original behavior. That means the object can retain permission to always animate your avatar. Revoke on sit revokes permissions when you sit on the object, which would be sort of defeating the purpose of sitting on a scripted object, because usually it's animations. Revoke on stand, this revokes the permissions when you stand up from sitting on the object. This is the recommended setting. And there's revoke on sit and stand. This revokes permissions when you either sit or stand. Thus, you would not be able to use any animations in a scripted couch or whatever. Then we have texture lag protection. Automatically hide large objects with high texture area. Enabling this will cause objects with a large texture area to not be rendered. This can be used to combat griefing done via specific objects. And there's this threshold. This sets the threshold area to use. And prims over that value would not be rendered. Now, this may cause some normal objects to not display either. That's the default. Yeah, it's fine. I can still see a 256 by 256 by 256 mega prim with it enabled. So it's more the texture thing that makes it interesting. Enable spam protection. These items allow you to protect yourself against various forms of spam, such as might be used in griefing attacks. Although I will admit it gets a little spammy, because it does inform you every time it blocks something. There's max lines in a single message. This limits the number of lines of text that will not be blocked. Over this number will be. There's max events from the same source. It indicates the maximum number of events that can be received from a single source in 2 seconds before the source gets blocked. Play sound request multiplier. If a script sends more than 2 times whatever number you have in there, requests within 2 seconds to play a sound, it gets blocked. I think somebody liked the number 2 when they were writing this up. There's a sound preload request multiplier, and if a script sends more than, you guessed it, 2 times whatever number you have in there, requests within 2 seconds to preload a sound, it gets blocked. And there's a button to unblock all spam sources, and this will unblock all blocked spam sources. I need to be clear here. This is per login. So for example, if your RLSL partner has a spammy thing that's always hitting lots of sounds at you, you have this enabled, you log in, it'll get blocked. You won't hear it anymore during that login session unless you click this button. But the next time you log in, you'd hear it and it would wind up getting blocked again. Then we have remove block button from script dialogues. This will remove the blocked option from script dialogues. Personally, I wouldn't do that. Because sometimes griefers use script dialogues to grief you with, and you wind up with a dozen of them. Block. No more problem. And there's remove join button from the group. Invitations when joining costs a fee. As the name suggests, this simply helps avoid paying money to join a group when you may not have intended to. So if you wanted to join a group that did cost and you had that enabled, you'd have to disable it, join the group. Notify about items from objects coming in too fast. This will show notifications about throttled incoming object offers from objects. Anybody that's ever bought a whole pile of textures or sounds or whatever will know exactly what I'm talking about. Notify about items from other residents coming in too fast. This will show notifications about throttled incoming object offers from avatars. And there's a throttle slider there. This is the number of objects offered within a second duration before the throttling starts. So here I go asking you the same old question. Any questions on this tab? Oh, I did. Well, in that case, since you're not going to ask questions, I'm going to ask one. Have you noticed those little question marks in the upper right-hand corner of a lot of things, including your preferences? If you're ever in your preferences or in some window, you can click on those question marks and it will open the help browser with the associated wiki page, which will hopefully answer your questions. So since y'all knew that, I'm going to get all pouty and I'm going to move on to the avatar subtab. Here, right at the top, we have amount that the avatar's head follows the mouth. You can set both of these sliders to 0 if you don't want your avatar's head following the mouse cursor for unfocused mouse movement. They do not affect whether your head moves to look at something that you focus your camera on. And you can adjust the vertical range as well as the horizontal range. I love this one. This is that's one of the things that always got me into trouble in Second Life, actually. Made people think I was reading their minds because I could see their avatar head looking up to the left, so that I knew they were going up to a HUD or a menu, or they were going down. You could tell what they were going for. Don't send avatar physics to server. This is the old V1 client compatibility. So if you don't want others to see your avatar physics movement, but wish to see it on yourself and others, you can enable this. Basically, avatar physics is what I call the 4 Bs: bouncing boobies, bellies, and butts. Now, this does allow people on viewers that do not have avatar physics to see it properly. However, if they're using a viewer that old, they can't see half the things in Second Life these days anyhow. Then there's the selection beam particle effects. I'm not going to go over cool, North. I'm not going to go over what these windows do. Really, the only way to play with them, they let you customize your beam. There's preset custom ones there, and you can make more. But really, the only way to learn these properly is by playing with them. Just remember, back up your settings first. Under that, there's beam updates per second. This controls how many particles the stream uses, so more dense or sparser, it's up to you. And the scale, this is the width or the size of the beam particle effect. So if you were using the Phoenix logo one, you could have bigger phoenixes or tinier phoenixes. There's the option to enable your selection beam or disable it, it's up to you. This affects what you see, not what others see. I do want to be clear on that. And then we have send selection data to chat. This allows scripts to do funky things with particles. Any questions on this tab? Basically what it does is it allows scripts to interact with your particle beam. We asked the developer that actually created that function what it did, and that was his answer. It allows scripts to do funky things with your particles. So you could have a script that would interact with your particle beam. No, you can't, Rufina. You used to be able to, but Linda Lab fixed a bug, and now you can't. That's the joys of bugs. They have unintended side effects. So did their fixes. Next comes the command line 1 subtab. There's an option here, enabled usage of the chat bar as a command line. If that's enabled, all the commands given below will be available for use. The commands themselves can be changed from the supplied defaults. And there's a command line 2 subtab. It's got the same checkbox at the top. Checking it on one will check it on the other, or uncheck it will uncheck it on the other. They both work together. It's all one. There just wasn't enough room in the preferences to have them all listed. This we're not going to talk about. That's all I'm going to tell you. Pretty cool thing. But that's all we're going to say about these tabs, because we cover that in our odds and ends 2 class. Do you see that as a blatant attempt to get you out to more classes? You know, pique your curiosity just a little bit, and then say, oh, you'll have to come back to another class to learn about that. It was on purpose, folks. So we're going to move on to the wind light subtab. Right at the top, we have automatically change environment to use region or parcel settings. If this is enabled, your wind light settings will change if you teleport or move into a region that has region level or parcel level wind light settings set up. This is in the same as in the top menu bar. Go to the world menu, environment editor, environment settings. Always use partial or region settings. You can disable this to stop the wind light setting from changing when you move through Second Life. So if you disable that, for example, a lot of people like to always be at noon in Second Life. They find it's too dark otherwise. They'll disable that, they'll go into the wind light settings, pick A, 12 p.m., and they're good to go. It's noon everywhere they go. If you have that one enabled, however, there's crossfade, region, environment, sky, preset changes made from quick prefs. Yeah, boo, that one goes back and forth. At any rate, this crossfade region, this dynamically transitions sky settings, so if you change from one to another, you get a fade in, fade out effect. And there's crossfade region, environment, water preset changes made from your quick prefs. Does the same thing with the water settings. You get a fade in, fade out. Next comes the Firestorm wind light share. There's an option here. Use Firestorm parcel wind light showing. It says it's experimental. This enables seeing parcel level wind light. So if you enable this and you go onto a parcel that has parcel level wind light, you'll get a pop-up asking if you want to see it. You can accept or decline. It's your choice. However, if you like it, and a lot of times it's pretty cool to see how the creator of the region intended you to see it. For example, Halloween is a very good time to have this enabled. So, if you like it, but you don't like being asked all the time, we've got some options. There's auto-apply wind light setting from a friend's land. So anybody on your friends list, that would automatically... the region communicates it to the viewer, and the viewer renders it. There's a wiki page on setting up parcel wind light, if you're really interested. And you can auto-apply wind light settings from any groups that you belong to's land, or you can auto-apply the wind light settings from any parcel. So everywhere you go, you'd get it without getting that pop-up bugging you all the time. And there's crossfade region environment changes for parcel wind light. Similar to the ones above, this allows for dynamic changes between wind light settings when a region with wind light setting parcels. It has parcels with their own different settings. It's a line in the description about land kit. Ask later and I'll dig up the wiki page that explains parcel wind light sharing. And not a problem. And there's a crossfading duration in seconds. This lets you set the time it takes for the crossfade. And then there's this one. This one's cool if you've got a high-end machine. Cloud texture. It says restart recommended. This allows the use of alternate cloud textures rather than the default Linden Lab texture. And there are some very cool ones in there. So once again, any questions on this tab? Alrighty then. Carrying on. We'll go to the Build 1 subtab. We've got 2 build subtabs now. The default object size allows you to change the parameters of a prim when it's first raised. Some builders really like this particular function. You can adjust the X, Y, and Z. Yes, I said Z. I'm Canadian. This sets the size of your prim in meters. So if you're building something big, you might set it to something large, hit apply, and then just start resing prims. If you were creating jewelry, you'd go smaller, and then you get the idea. In the settings section, you can set the prim to phantom, physical, or temporary, as well as choose the material. And then there's texture. This is where you can choose the default texture for your prims, as well as the color alpha glow, as well as enable full bright for prims that you create. You can also use the drop-down menu to set the shine level if you so choose. Then we have permissions. This lets you set the default permissions for prims that you create. These also apply to any uploads that you do, which can be quite handy. Then there's a pivot point section. Axis on root prim. This moves the axis from the center of the object to the center of the root prim while you're actually building. It can be handy for builders. And you can change the pivot point of an object using the X, Y, and Z. I do recommend having this values are percent checked. When that's enabled, the values are percentage. And there's enable LSL preprocessor. This enables the functionality offered by the LSL preprocessor. If it's enabled, there are a few other options. You can enable the script optimizer. You can enable switch case statements. You can enable lazy lists. You can allow the use of the hash sign include directive. There's a text box there for the preprocessor include path. And hopefully you don't have many questions about this. If you do, I'll be telling you can find more info on the preprocessor on our wiki because I'm no scripter, folks. That depends on a bunch of things. It also depends on who you ask. Mono is generally more efficient, generally speaking. However, the biggest difference is an LSL script will always use 16K of memory. It will always be assigned 16K of memory on the server. Whereas a mono script will use up to 64K. But it doesn't use 64K all the time. If it's only set to use, if there's only 8K there of memory use, that's all it will use. And quite frankly, I don't know enough about scripting to tell you one's better than the other. From what I understand, there's a good time to use LSL, there's a good time to use mono. Then comes the Build 2 subtab. We have enable highlighting of selected prims. This shows the highlight outline on prims that you select. Deselecting this can increase viewer performance when several prims or a large link set are selected. simply because it's more rendering to be done on your screen. Limit select distance in meters. You can enable this if you want to limit the distance at which you can select or edit objects. To the right, you can specify the maximum distance if this option is enabled. Then we have limit drag distance in meters. If this is enabled, you won't be able to move objects over a distance greater than the limit set here. You ever been building and changed something and all of a sudden it's gone? Either up or down or sideways. This can eliminate this to keep it within a certain parameter, make it easier to find it. Constrain rotations to multiples of degrees when not using snap to grid. Manual rotations will always snap to the number of degrees you set here when snap to grid is disabled. And then a biggie. Use old set object for sale behavior. This uses the old style for setting objects for sale. It is not recommended. Using the new method, you click for sale, and then you specify the price, and then you click apply. The object does not become for sale until you click apply. This safeguards against the object being purchased for the default 10 lindens using the old method. There was a rash of people buying things. I think it was at one of the breedables. People would res things and go to set them for sale, and they were set for 10 lindens, and they meant to charge 1,500 lindens, and they lost out because somebody was sitting there buying them as soon as they resed them at 10 lindens. Save scripts edited from inventory as mono. This allows you to set so that scripts edited in your inventory will compile with mono rather than LSL2. Save textures from inventory to disk as a PNG instead of a TGA by default. This simply changes the default image save format, saving you from having to do it manually. Use Control plus mouse to grab and manipulate objects. With this enabled, you can hold down the Control key and left click on an object, and you can move it around in world. Then we have allow click drag or click scale together with caps lock of a texture face in build mode. If this is enabled, you'll be able to click and drag or scale textures on a prim face. To do this, you'd need to be in edit mode on the prim, enable select texture, and then click on the prim face that you wish to modify. And we have preview animations on own avatar during upload. When this is enabled, any animations that you upload will be played in preview on your avatar when you're uploading them. So any questions? Okay, well, we've made it through the first hour of the class. Does anybody know? I'm just teasing, folks. That's it. You made it through the class. Before anybody runs away or starts asking other questions, I want to thank you personally for taking the time to come out to this class. It's huge. It means far more to us on the support team than you can imagine. I also want to thank you on behalf of the entire Phoenix Firestorm team for using our viewer. You, the viewers, users, are the reason that Firestorm is as popular as it is. Cool, Shasley. That's what we like to hear. And that means we're into open Q&A times, where you can ask anything you like. I'm not trying to entertain the people on YouTube. This goes on YouTube to inform people, so that they can see that the classes, they can get the information from the classes, they can see that they're not always dull, boring lectures, and maybe get them to come out to a class or two as well. Let them know they can ask whatever they want after the classes. Reasonable? If it, I'd say 60 is more than enough, Boo. If you're getting 60 FPS in a normal region, you know, if you're getting over that, 50, 60 is plenty. I say 60 because that's basically double what the average person is going to be able to see. You know. Well, I can help you get 30 most of the time, Chesley. Drop your draw distance all the way down, have everything set to low, your LODs down to the defaults on low, and if you're in an uncrowded area, you'll get 30 FPS. Personally, right now, I'm looking down on the classroom from above the shelter. Admittedly, I'm on an old computer, but I'm getting 15 to 17 FPS here with my graphics set on low. Yeah. Ralphie, you're quite welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm serious. Okay, confession time. I do these classes because I'm selfish and I'm lazy. The selfish part is pretty simple. The more you know, the fewer problems you... well, no. The selfish part's really easy. I enjoy doing these classes. I really do. The lazy part's even simpler to explain. The more you know, the fewer problems you have. The more you help other people, the less work the support team does.